The chef took the knife and tried to cut the lobster, but suddenly found some unknown liquid under the lobster. He wanted to pick up the lobster to find out, but the next second the chef was sprayed all over and angrily called the apprentice to deal with the lobster, but the apprentice was also sprayed in the process. When they all thought that the lobster was just dead, the chef suddenly felt weak on the way home from get off work. He thought he was just too tired from work and insisted on rushing home, but he didn't take a few steps before he suddenly fell to the ground and vomited a lot of black liquid. He was later pronounced dead after failed rescue. This is the latest sci-fi disaster film created by the Game of Thrones team. The film received unanimous praise as soon as it was released, and netizens who have seen it, they all said that they thought it was just an ordinary movie, but they didn't expect that the more they watched it, the more they got addicted, and the plot was very thorough. Maybe there really are highly intelligent creatures living in the sea. As humans gradually pollute the ocean has also begun to fight back against humans. It all started with a fisherman who was about to go out to sea to fish. The man was the most capable fisherman in the village. Every time he went out to sea, he would go to deeper waters to fish. This time was just as dangerous. It happened to be this time that the man cast his fishing net, expecting to catch big fish, but he didn't expect that the recovered fishing net couldn't be pulled. As he exerted force, the man was also dragged into the sea by the reaction force. He didn't want to lose the fishing net on which he depended for survival, so he began to. He dived down to try to retrieve the fishing net. However, just as he reached the bottom of the water, the light suddenly dimmed. He looked up and found that his head was surrounded by a dense school of fish. At this moment, it was too late for him to escape. The man could only watch the school of fish drown him. Then, in an observation station on the seashore, a biologist named Charlie suddenly received information about a submersible failure. For the sake of important observation data, Charlie hurried to the beacon to retrieve the observer. After the technicians checked, they found that the circuit board was damaged due to water leakage. After reinstalling a new circuit board, Charlie and her assistant and boyfriend went to the target waters to relaunch the submersible. But just as they put down the submersible, her boyfriend suddenly found a white blob floating on the water with white smoke. Charlie calmly fished the object out and easily lit it with a lighter.
It's methane hydrate.
Methane hydrate is also called combustible ice. It is formed by algae sinking after death and accumulating on the seabed. When decomposing, it releases methane, so it will freeze due to low temperature. It is usually difficult to see them floating to the surface of the sea. It is also shocking to see so much combustible ice floating on the surface. Charlie has been engaged in marine life protection for so many years, but this is the first time he has encountered this situation. In order to find out the reason, Charlie recorded these pictures and sent them back to the headquarters for research. Meanwhile, at another beach, a killer whale with strange wounds all over its body was washed ashore. In order to find out the reason, Leon, who is also a marine biologist, came to a bay according to the wind direction. Through experienced fishermen, he learned that 2 hours ago, when they were out to sea, a killer whale did attack their fishing boat and seriously damage the boat. In order to protect themselves, the fishermen had to fight back with sickles and knives and forks. Perhaps it was the one on the beach, but these gave Leon a headache again. Because killer whales are social creatures, they generally do not actively attack humans, so what made it crazy? Leon was puzzled. In order to find out the reason, Leon began to monitor the situation on the seabed around him day and night. Finally, on this day, he detected the reappearance of the killer whales, so he immediately packed up and prepared to leave. However, he did not expect that a whale-watching boat also set off at a nearby port, and its destination was the same as Leon's. After Leon came to the sea, he also put down the listening device to monitor the movements of the whales. But just as he was immersed in it, a humpback whale suddenly swam over from behind. The humpback whale stayed by Leon's boat and stared at him for a while, then left without a word. Leon, who had not come for the humpback whale, did not care so much. He continued to pay attention to the movements of the killer whales, but when he picked up the telescope to observe, he suddenly found the figure of the whale-watching boat. It was on the route of the whale group. Seeing that the situation was not good, he immediately drove the boat to warn them. At this time, the humpback whales had already started to perform around the crown whale boat, but the passengers on the boat were completely unaware that danger was approaching. At this time, Leon also arrived at the crash site, and the killer whales also followed closely. Suddenly, everyone began to race against death. In the end, Leon still failed to save everyone. Even though so many changes happened in the ocean, the fishermen didn't care at all. They still caught their catch. A lobster at the bottom of the water was caught by them and bought by the hotel. Then the scene at the beginning happened. The hospital couldn't find any reason for the chef's death, and even didn't know what the black liquid he vomited from his mouth was. In order to find out the truth, a female doctor named Scarlett found the chef of the hotel. After the chef's introduction, she also knew the ins and outs of the matter. After knowing this, Scarlett went to look for the apprentice who was also sprayed with an unknown liquid. But now the apprentice's home was empty. After Scarlett's search, he finally found her in the bedroom. On the other hand, in order to find out why the methane hydrate floated to the surface abnormally, Charlie's company also sent a scientific research ship to conduct on-site exploration. As the detection robot dived to the bottom of the sea, they also found many more unidentified worms on the seabed, and they were lying on the methane hydrate in groups. Seeing this, they thought that it might be these worms, so they brought some worms back for research. Through continuous observation under a microscope, scientists found that these were not any creatures in existing records. They suddenly appeared on the seabed like alien creatures. It was even found through observation that these worms have very strong reproduction and growth capabilities, far exceeding all creatures on the Earth. How they appeared is unknown, and they even seem to be collectively there. It is combustible ice, and they will keep moving until they die. They seem to be carrying some unknown substances, which cause these substances to corrode the ice even after they die. The scientists of the entire company can't give any explanation for this, so they have no choice but to start the research ship to go there. But this time they are no longer just observing on the surface, but directly intend to drill through the ice before the worms to see what is underneath. But as the drilling continued, they suddenly heard some strange sounds, and then the research ship began to shake. The accident came too suddenly. In order to prevent the accident from getting worse, they had to stop the drilling operation, and then left some people to continue observing the changes, while others went back to study the worms. In order to find out why the killer whales took the initiative to attack humans, Leon also found a freighter company and met the president played by Takuya Kimura here. Because not long ago, their freighter not only encountered a runaway humpback whale during the transportation process, but also brought back scallops that had never been seen from the sea. Under the guidance of the staff, Leon saw the freighter full of scallops. According to the staff, the hull of the freighter was very good before it set off.
Mind if We've got plenty to spare.
The sea was clean, but after only 18 days of sailing, it was covered with scallops. Leon took some scallops back to study them carefully. At night, the research ship left at sea had an accident. A researcher was recording a video and sending it to TikTok, but halfway through the recording, the computer suddenly malfunctioned, and then the desktop began to shake. A high-volume wavelength suddenly appeared on the monitoring display. A large number of bubbles appeared around the hull. All this shows that the god of death has surrounded them. On the morning of the second day after the accident, a couple was playing on the bridge and accidentally dropped a book into the water. Unexpectedly, a large number of jellyfish floated to the surface along with the book, and the number was so large that it spread all over the harbor. In order to find out the cause of death of the chef and the apprentice, Scarlett also took their blood back to the laboratory for microscopic observation. By comparing it with normal blood, Scarlett found that there was an extra type of Vibrio vulnificus in their blood. Because in the blood of normal people, the human immune cells will kill Vibrio, but the Vibrio vulnificus in the blood of these two people actually killed their blood cells, and the speed was extremely alarming.
Now lucky no one else has contracted it.
There have been other people infected. I just heard this morning. None of them survived.
Leon, who brought the scallops back to the laboratory for research, also found that this scallop with worm-like teeth is not a shellfish on the Earth, and ordinary mussels generally cannot swim. So how did they quickly attach to the cargo ship? This mystery has become another mystery. For this mystery, Leon thought of the killer whale on the beach, so he applied for an autopsy observation of the killer whale.
Sure an orca's big enough for your first time?
No problem.
Fine. But they're your responsibility.
And Leon dissected the killer whale's brain on the beach. After further dissection, Leon found a white fungus-like substance in the killer whale's brain. These signs indicate that there seems to be an unknown fungus in the ocean that is changing the shape of the ocean. At the same time, in a car washer was working happily 1 second, but suddenly became weak and confused the next second. Afterwards, the man was rushed to the hospital with the same symptoms as the chef, and this was the 12th case so far. Scarlett, who received the news, seemed to remember what a garbage disposal was, because the lobster was broken into pieces by the apprentice and thrown into the sewage system, so it was very likely that the Vibrio vulnificus had entered the tap water system along with the water source. But just as he finished speaking, a large number of patients suddenly appeared in the hospital. After knowing the reason why killer whales actively attack humans, Leon began to study all the attack locations on the map. He only needed to lightly draw a charcoal pencil on the map to know the killer whale's attack patterns.
The migration route. All the attacks are happening along it.
After knowing this, Leon drove the boat to a place, jumped in his swimsuit, and swam to a humpback whale habitat. At this time, all the humpback whales were sleeping upside down, which was the main reason for Leon's action. He attached a monitor to him while the humpback whales were still asleep, but he had just settled the humpback whales, and they all woke up without any signs. Seeing that the situation was not good, Leon quickly untied the weight on his waist and floated up to escape. They successfully escaped from the sea area where the humpback whales were. After waiting for several days, Leon finally received the signal sent back by the monitor, so he immediately drove the boat to bring back the monitor floating on the sea. After returning to the laboratory, they immediately observed the video. In the video, the humpback whales swam forward all the way, and everything went very smoothly, but when they came to a water area, they suddenly began to dive
Do
collectively.
you usually dive this deep?
No. Never.
As the humpback whales dived, the seabed began to become extremely dark. But as time went by, they found that there were dots of light in the deep sea ahead. The closer the humpback whales got to the light, the brighter it became, as if there was a bustling city on the seabed.